I thought my stepdaughter and I had a great relationship. Then I overheard the truth. Was I wrong to cry? I, 44, married my husband 8 years ago. His first wife died when his daughter was 5. She was 9 when we met and 11 when we got married. We have what I always considered a pretty good relationship, and I love her, and she's a good kid and now young adult. I could never have kids of my own, and I accepted that. I never expected, suggested, or implied I wanted to be her mom. I was happy to be a part of her life and some part of her family. I did think we loved each other. But I learned this was one-sided at Christmas. My husband's extended family planned a few days away after Christmas to spend as a family. We rented a cabin and everyone was under one roof for a few nights. I fell ill halfway through and stayed in bed most of the latter part of the trip. One of those days I woke up from a nap and could hear my stepdaughter and Sil talking, and I didn't hear all of it. But I did hear her tell her aunt she doesn't love me and really only tolerates that her dad married me because he's happy, but she wishes he hadn't married me, or anyone. I turned on the TV to drown out the sound, but then I started crying. It made me sad, and I won't lie and say it didn't or that it didn't bother me at all. But I was never going to bring it up. Then Sil checked on me after a while and found me crying. She realized I must have heard some of it and told me I should never have listened, and that crying wouldn't solve anything. Then she told me not to start any trouble based on what I heard. I said I wasn't going to, but I just needed to let it out. I didn't bring it up again, and I was happy to let it go. But my Sil brought it up again, and she told me I could feel a certain way, but at my age, and given my stepdaughter's loss, I shouldn't have made it about me by crying. She told me she hoped I wasn't planning to get my husband to go after my stepdaughter. I told her I never said a word to my husband. I said I wasn't trying to make it about me. She claims that couldn't be true when I cried, and I should think about that so it never comes out around others.
Was she wrong for feeling heartbroken? Or is this just the reality of blended families? A complex and sensitive case. As a judge, I must consider the facts and emotions presented. From what I've gathered, you've been married to your husband for 8 years, and his daughter from his previous marriage has been a part of your life since she was 9 years old. You've always accepted her as your stepdaughter and have been a loving and supportive presence in her life. However, it appears that there may be a misunderstanding or a lack of communication between you and your stepdaughter. She expressed her feelings to her aunt, stating that she doesn't love you and only tolerates your marriage to her father because he's happy. This revelation was hurtful and made you cry. Your sister-in-law, Stepdaughter, reacted in a way that I find concerning. Instead of offering empathy or support, she told you that crying wouldn't solve anything and that you shouldn't make it about you. She also implied that you were somehow responsible for your stepdaughter's feelings and that you shouldn't have made your husband aware of this situation. As a judge, I must consider the following questions. 1. Did you overreact or make a mountain out of a molehill by crying about this situation? 2. Was your Sil's response reasonable and supportive, or did she add fuel to the fire? 3. Should you have discussed this situation with your husband, or was it best left unspoken? Based on the facts, I find that your Sil's response was not only unhelpful, but also hurtful. She implied that you were responsible for your stepdaughter's feelings and that you should have kept this situation private. This is not a healthy or supportive dynamic, and I would caution your Sil against making similar comments in the future. As for you, I understand that hearing your stepdaughter's words was hurtful and made you cry. However, I don't think you overreacted or made a mountain out of a molehill. It's natural to feel sad and hurt in this situation, and it's not something that can be easily brushed off. In terms of whether you should have discussed this situation with your husband, I think it's a complex issue. On one hand, it's possible that discussing this situation could have led to a deeper understanding and empathy between you and your stepdaughter. On the other hand, it's also possible that discussing this situation could have led to conflict and hurt feelings. Ultimately, I think it's best to approach this situation with empathy and understanding. I would advise you to have an open and honest conversation with your husband about this situation, but also to be mindful of your stepdaughter's feelings and boundaries. As for your Sil's comments, I would caution her against making similar comments in the future. As a supportive family member, her role is to offer empathy and support, not to add fuel to the fire or imply that someone is responsible for someone else's feelings. Judgment. Your Sil's response was not reasonable or supportive, and I would caution her against making similar comments in the future. You, on the other hand, were understandably hurt and sad by your stepdaughter's words, And I think it's best to approach this situation with empathy and understanding.